We're live to the second episode of HIMS Weekly. I'm just going to tweet this out and then we can get started. How's it going?
I'm fine, man. Maybe let me just check my Wi-Fi to make it better. 1 minute.
We're running a little bit late this morning. I blame myself. I was just telling Manuel behind the scenes, there is no coffee shops that open in Japan before 7 a.m. So McDonald's is literally the only one that I have.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, nice. I changed my Wi-Fi. That's why I was asking.
Cool.
Let me repost your tweet.
The level of preparedness right now. Okay. Cool. So, hey, Lisa. Back-to-back shows for Lisa. And then these two knuckleheads. Why don't you make these streams 1 to 2 hours earlier so we can watch in Europe? It's not fun to watch the replay. We can make it earlier. I think that is all still up in the air. It's only our second episode. So if we want to make it earlier, we can. I'm not against that. Okay. So people are just rolling in. Before we get into the HIMS content, somebody just crossed 100K in their portfolio.
That's right.
How's
Finally.
that feel?
I mean, it felt good, but with the volatility of my portfolio, I mean, next week I'll probably be at 90K again. It's fine.
It happens, man. You can celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it, so it's okay. But it was a big milestone. I was very excited yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah, dude. I remember the first time I crossed 100K, I felt like the richest person in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
then I get pretty normal.
But if I was counting on dollars, I would have reached it like way sooner. But I'm in euros, so yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Which is crazy because you're only 22.
Yeah,
that's the part that makes me jealous.
I mean, I had a boost last year, unfortunately, because of an inheritance. But I mean, I still had to double that money basically. So I'm still very proud of me, even though I had it.
Yeah, I mean, that's still great, man. There's a lot of 22-year-olds who get some money and blow it all. It's not
Yeah,
easy.
Exactly. I could have done it easily. And especially as I'm from Portugal, like here, it's crazy. Like just to have 100K, like no matter what age you are, it's crazy. I mean, it's really. And I mean, I know a lot of people from my age that would have blow all the money out as soon as they got it. Like they'd probably buy a car or buy something like that, like expensive stuff just to flex. And so, yeah, I'm still proud of me.
Are you still going to stay in 3 stocks? So maybe just let people know, your 3 positions and what you're planning to do.
Yeah, so I have High Tide, the first stock, then HIMS, and then Rocket Lab. And
in that order?
In that order. And now I'm basically out of money to build more positions, or at least more considerable positions, because I don't like to open a 1% position or a 2% position. I don't really like to do it. I like to study companies in depth and only hold them if they really make the difference in my portfolio. So I'm really thinking about what I'm going to do now, because in a way I don't want to sell my winners. I could have done it earlier and I would never reach this stage so early, because if I could, have like so far my returns in Rocket Lab are like 130 or 40%. In HIMS the same. iTide now is like 60% or something. So I had the temptation of selling HIMS before, and then selling Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab I'm holding just like for 2 months and a half or 3 months, so I didn't really have that temptation. But HIMS
Mhm.
I was holding for a while, and then I got like with the GLP-1s run up, I was like, should I sell? But I'm really not a fan of selling winners, so I just hold on to it, and I'm glad I did it. But now, I mean, I want to build some positions, and I mean, every day I'm studying a stock, or usually not different stocks. I like to really go deep into the stocks I love. And I gotta be honest, sometimes I want to, for instance, Grab or Transmedics. I've been enjoying researching them, so I could open a position if I had the money, but I really don't want to sell my winners. So I'm trying to build an online business to give me some cash flow or something like that, so that I can build a cash pile and then open a fourth large position. But I mean, if I can't do it, I'll probably trim one of my winners at some point, because I mean, I'll
Yeah.
not die because of that. But I'm really trying to be like disciplined enough not to do it. And so far, I mean, it's paying off. But I know at some point it will correct. But I'm
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? I was talking about hymns on a podcast yesterday, and just looking at the chart, this thing, started at $8, went to 16, went back to 11, went to 25, went to 13, and now it's at 23 again. And this is in the course of 1 year, and you're thinking, what the hell is this stock? What is going on here? It's incredibly volatile. If we go back to like $15, I totally wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, it's a crazy roller coaster. I mean, we it just needs like a GLP-1 related news to come down like 10 or 20%, even if it has nothing to do with like it always has something to do with the company, but even if it doesn't really impact the numbers that much, it
Mhm.
always makes it move like crazy. I mean, it's really a roller coaster.
Yeah, so maybe we can start at the GLP-1 news. Over
Yeah.
the past couple of weeks, we had news around this FDA shortage list, then the compounder suing the FDA, and then the FDA walking it back and reevaluating their decision. Maybe you can walk us through that, because to my understanding, HIMS is not really affected at all with any of this, other than just the perception. You're on mute.
Sorry, I was coughing and I muted. So that's what everyone was saying. Like when tirzepatide was removed from the shortage list, everyone on X were like, "Oh, it doesn't really make sense because IMS offers semaglutide, which is the Novo Nordisk's GLP-1, not the Eli Lilly's." And I understand that, and I also believe it didn't make sense for the stock to fall for like by like 10% or 15%. I don't remember, but in a way, it indirectly affects IMS because Andrew, the founder and CEO, on the last earnings call, he said that HIMS will offer tirzepatide soon. Like they plan to offer a compounded version. So probably the analysts were like counting on that when they made the assumptions for 2025 or for the fourth quarter of 2024, something like that. So it indirectly affected IMS, but the thing is, I believe that the drop in the stock's price didn't make sense, mostly because a few weeks before that, Eli Lilly CEO literally said our shortage is ending and it will end in a few weeks. And then when the shortage ended a couple of weeks or 3 or 4 weeks later, the stock fell again. Like, and on that day when the CEO said that, the stock fell even more. The stock fell like 15 or 20%. I'm not really sure, but at least 15% it fell. And now it fell again for the same reason. So it kind of fell twice on the same news. And that's why I believe it really didn't make sense. I mean, I understand the people who say it didn't make sense because HIMS offers semaglutide and all that, but I can see the other side and say that it indirectly affected. But then when the compounders group sued FDA, I was like, initially, even though HIMS was not involved in this, and so, I mean, supposedly it was okay, but I got a bit scared because I thought, let's say, it wasn't prudent from compounders to try starting a war with the FDA, if you know what I mean. Because, I mean, it wasn't really starting a war, but you never want someone to sue you. So it wasn't really the best thing to do. Because, in my opinion, one of the, let's say, bear cases with HIMS and with companies related or similar to HIMS is that compounding medicines usually, not usually, but historically isn't supposed to be a thing you do for massive production. And HIMS is reaching a point where it could be considered massive production. I mean, it's still not that much, so I believe it's still okay. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a shareholder. But doing this could make the FDA think, okay, let's tighten compounder rules. These guys are messing with us. Let's mess with them, or something like that. But I mean, it looks like it was nice because they ended up reviewing the situation, because the claims were essentially that the FDA took out tirzepatide from the shortage list, but they only did it because Eli Lilly said it wasn't on shortage anymore. And like, Eli Lilly obviously wants its drug to be out of shortage so that they can monopolize it. So obviously it didn't really make sense to take it out from the shortage list just because Eli Lilly said. They had to like ask the general market, let's say, how is the situation and should we take it. So it was a good claim, but I was a bit scared about this. I can't lie, but thankfully it was good. And I remember I've read somewhere that once the no, I remember I've read somewhere that I think they will talk about this, like the FDA, about taking it out or not of the shortage list in December. But don't quote me on this because I'm not really sure where I've read it. And after that, after the medicine or the drug comes out of the shortage list, I think compounders are allowed to sell it for 60 more days. So if the decision comes in December and they take it out, they can at least sell it until February, let's say. So I think that's better than what the market was expecting.
So I have a lot of questions. The basic reason why the compounders then sued the FDA was simply because the FDA was just going off of Eli Lilly's word that, Eli Lilly was saying, hey, it's going to come off shortage. And then the FDA took it off shortage. And then the compounders were basically saying, hey, we're still in shortage here.
Yeah,
That was
essentially, yeah. That's what they claimed. They said, I mean, yeah, you took it out of shortage because Eli Lilly said it's not on shortage anymore and they can supply the market, but we're still seeing huge demand from people who cannot access like the original version. So then
Mhm.
the FDA was like, okay, maybe we need to review this. And I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. But I was a bit scared of the situation and like suing it. They could just issue a statement saying, we don't agree with this because we still see a huge demand. But right away they sued the FDA. That's why I was like a bit, you know.
Got it. So, but eventually it's going to come off shortage. Like everybody knows that. The compounders know that. Lilly knows that. Everybody knows that it's not going to stay in shortage forever. It's just a matter of time until it does, right? And same with semaglutide as well. Like they're all going to come off the shortage list.
Yeah. So you were talking about the roller coaster of IM's stocks price.
Yeah.
And like when IMS got to the all-time high of $25 per share, it reported, like somewhere around that time, it reported the Q2 results. And in the earnings call, the CEO, Andrew, he basically said he believes HIMS will continue to sell GLP-1s after the shortage ends, which is something that, I mean, supposedly it's not allowed. And what he
Right.
said is that we have, as you know, sorry, we have like the personalization of dosages in our products. We have that differentiating factor. And so we believe that if we do that for GLP-1s, we can sell it without infringing any patent. And so we will still be able to do it after the shortage ends if we adapt the dosage of the component to each customer. That's what he said. And initially, everyone was like, this is huge. I mean, if they can do it, it's crazy good. But
Mhm.
then like the stock started to crash in the weeks after, and everyone was wondering why. And essentially, what I think it's everyone got to the same conclusion, even if some got earlier. Basically, it's kind of a huge risk to threaten Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, which are some of the like largest companies in the world. Sorry, that you will do it because they can just sue you until you die. Essentially, it's what everyone was fearing, and so it brought a huge litigation risk to HIMS. So that's essentially what made the stock's price fall so much. Sorry.
So maybe I need some help understanding the whole concept of being in a shortage, because my understanding is very simple. They're in a shortage. There's too much demand, too little supply, and at some point that's going to come to an equilibrium. Supply is going to meet the demand, and that's it. How does this differ from the actual situation? Because at some point or another, everybody, like the drug itself, is going to come off shortage, and everybody is still going to be able to sell it, right? Just not at the same crazy demand. But you're saying that there's 60 days. So how do those two things play together?
So when the supposedly when it's when the drugs came out of the shortage list, they have Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly old patents for the drug. So only those companies can sell it.
Got it.
Essentially, it's this. Now,
So
as it's on the
essentially,
shortage,
so
go ahead.
essentially, for hymns to sell it, they have to get around the patent somehow.
Exactly. And that's the risk. That's essentially the litigation risk. So Andrew said in the earnings call that he believes that by doing that, like the personalization of dosages and etc., they can do it without infringing any patent. He didn't use these words, but it's essentially what he meant.
So the only patents that are out there right now are for terzepatide and semaglutide, right?
Yeah, I believe it's the only GLP-1s existing.
I
The only two.
also saw this thing around liraglutide.
Yeah, Laragle, but that's like the less effective one. Like
Mm.
in terms of, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think IMS also might enter that.
Well, so
But like
that's the thing, right? Andrew, I think, mentioned it in the last earnings call that liraglutide it's coming off of a patent. Um, I don't know. It could be a pivot for the 503B facility after semaglutide comes off shortage for them to pivot to liraglutide instead. Now, I don't know the dosages or the potency of making that shift, but I'm just thinking legally to get around the patents for now.
yeah, that 503B compounding pharmacy, one of the reasons why they bought it, was to do that, to do the personalization of GLP-1 dosages, because
Right.
GLP-1s, you have like, I'm not sure about the numbers, so I'm just making an example. But you have like an option with 1 milligram, an option with 2 milligrams, an option with 3 milligrams. I mean, it's not like this, but it's something like that. You have like a few different options. But imagine, this is what I believe. Like HIMS can just say, oh, and like GLP-1s, as I said, like in the last episode, these drugs are like super powerful and have huge side effects. I mean,
Right.
it's huge side effects. So HIMS can just say, oh, our like this customer needs 0.9 instead of 1 milligram. So we're personalizing it for its own like wellness and like you understand what I mean, right? So I think it's what Andrew plans to do. I'm not sure
Well,
if that infringes the patent or not.
yeah.
I'm sure they will fight back, but at least it was what I understood that they're planning to do.
Yeah, I mean, if the patent is that easy to get around, then there's no problem at all. Like all of this discussion is it doesn't matter
Yeah, but
because it won't affect them.
the thing is, the Financial Times, like they even made a full article about this, and they were just trashing HIMS because
Mhm.
I guess they went to talk with other compounders, and they said no. I mean, when the shortage is over, we're not selling GLP-1s anymore for sure. We're not taking that risk. We can't do it. And even they went to the 503B compounding pharmacies, and at that time, HIMS. I'm not sure if it had already finished the acquisition, but it's not relevant
Mhm.
because the compounders all need suppliers. Now HIMS is acquired the 503B compounding pharmacy, so they're kind of verticalizing the supply chain, which is very good. But
Mhm.
essentially, they asked like a random 503B compounding pharmacy if they would supply it, if in case like compounders wanted to sell it after the shortage. And I think that pharmacy or the guy running that pharmacy said no, no, never, we're not going to do it. And I think that's why everyone was like, maybe HIMS is not doing, he's not like doing the right thing. Maybe
Mhm.
they should be more careful, etc., etc. And that's essentially what made the stock's price like fall like crazy. But
So that makes sense. It's interesting because I mean, throughout the show, we're going to talk about the new CMO and that whole perception pivot out of strictly GLP-1s. I mean, I think for HIMS, they would benefit from the market seeing them more than just a GLP-1 provider. But at the same time, a big reason why they've been running so hard is because the market sees them as a GLP-1 provider. Um, so we'll talk about that. But just before we get off of GLP-1 specifically, I wanted to throw up Carl's question here. Um, are you concerned about Amazon flexing their muscles in this space?
okay, so Amazon has been like let's say a bear case for a long time, like a few years at least.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, they're investing more in the Amazon pharmacy thing, and I understand the concerns because no one wants to compete with Amazon. I mean, it's understandable, but I have a few factors come into play here, and I'm not saying Amazon will not hurt IM's business. I mean, that's perfectly possible. But first, it's a huge market, so they may very well both be winners.
Yeah.
It's pretty plausible. Then, um, to use Amazon pharmacy, I mean, I'm not a US citizen, but it's what I've read. I think you need to have Amazon Prime, right? I'm not sure. Maybe you don't know, but I think you need to have Amazon Prime. So that excludes millions of people. Like, I mean, yes, Amazon Prime is huge, but I'm not everyone has Amazon Prime. And then I think there's a lot of people don't like feel safe by having like by receiving healthcare treatments from huge companies like Amazon, like Walmart and stuff like that, because they feel like they're being treated as a number rather than as a people. as a person. Sorry. So
Hmm.
I think that also comes into play here, because with HIMS, I mean, if you use their app and if you like search on the website and everything, it's really user friendly, and you feel like you're you're using something like familiar, and it's like they probably don't care, they care about you as much as Amazon and Walmart, but it's kind of a bit something related to your to how you feel. And a lot of people will disagree with me, and to be honest, I understand, because it's a bit subjective, this.
Hmm.
All in all, I think it's a risk that a relevant risk, and maybe one of the largest risks, besides that thing I said earlier about the FDA tightening the rules for compounders and all that. I think it's a relevant risk, but I think it doesn't break the thesis. Otherwise, I would never have invested in HIMS, because 2 or 3 years ago, Amazon was already in Amazon Pharmacy,
Yeah.
with Amazon Pharmacy. So essentially, yes, we should monitor it, but the numbers keep every time the numbers keep proving everyone is wrong. So essentially, it's that.
So Amazon, and I want to respond also to Carl's question, but Amazon is really a competitor for all aspects of him's business, not just GLP-1s or whatever hair loss, but everything, right? Because Amazon Pharmacy feasibly can span the entire spectrum, right? So that's, I think, what makes it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought the question was like general, not about GLP-1s,
yeah, 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 of course,
because
but
I think they don't even offer GLP-1s, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I don't think so. But that's what makes it, I think, a little bit scarier of a bear case, is because it's not limited to just one vertical. It's not like, oh well, Hims is competing against Eli Lilly for GLP-1s or whoever. So is it a bear case? Absolutely. I'm not saying that, it's never going to affect the company, but is it something that we should be worried about or should stop us from investing in Hims at this valuation? I don't personally agree with that because, again, similar to what you were saying, the market cap or the market potential is just so incredibly large that I think there will be space for multiple players, especially players that can differentiate themselves. And we've talked about the ways in which HIMS differentiates itself from competitors, and I think that that's going to be a like moat. It's going to be a value proposition for the business. So I would feel the same way about Amazon as I would feel about any competitor. I mean, just because it's Amazon, what does that mean? It carries a brand, it carries a very well capitalized entrant, and it carries maybe some customer loyalty of people transitioning over. Well, I would be just as concerned if it was Eli Lilly or if it was, Johnson and Johnson or one of these like very established, players that are more in the pharma space specifically. So I treat them the same way. I'm not saying like, oh my God, it's Amazon and I want to
Mhm.
be scared just because of the logo. It's just another competitor, and Hims is playing in a very competitive space. But the reason it's a competitive space is because it's a very lucrative space. You wouldn't have a lot of competitors if there wasn't money in it, right? So, to some degree, it also validates the market that Hims is playing in. If they are able to differentiate themselves in their offering, then that's a very, very positive thing because it's a very rich market.
Exactly, and that's what has been happening for the past years. I mean, you just need to look, as I was saying, this seems like an easy answer, but it's really the truth. You just need to look at the numbers, and I mean, if for instance, there are no like there are just I believe one competitor, or really direct competitor to HIMS, publicly traded, which is LifeMD. The ticker is LFMD, and I mean, if you yesterday or 2 days ago, I went to their website, and it's kind of almost the same as HIMS. They don't
Mm.
have some of the differentiated factors like the personalization and some like no, I'm not. I shouldn't say residual things, but things that, I mean, if you need a treatment, You can get it probably with LifeMD, probably not
Right.
as effective as you can with HIMS. And that's also the brand awareness. It's also important because HIMS, most people like in the investor space, not in terms of customers, think that IMS just wants to prescribe everything to everyone and just make as money as possible, like without caring about the safety of customers. But that's not true. Like HIMS, before launching a new category, they take like months and months trying to do it in the best way possible. They do tests with people, like not tests like the big pharmas do, obviously,
Hmm.
but they really do it. For instance, GLP-1s and weight loss, the weight loss category, I remember analysts asking about it for like 1 or 2 years before they launched it. And they were like, yes, we have something prepared and we could release it in the next quarter, but we're not going to do it. We want to do it really in a safe way. Because if we like throw it to the market and then we have problems, that's really serious and that will harm like our brand awareness and how people trust us. So they really think like before doing, and I think that's what's happening with hormonal therapy and testosterone. We're going to talk about it, but essentially what I want to say is that HIMS really tries like to do the best for their clients, because that's what brings more clients back. Because in this sector, although it's as it is like mostly stigmatized conditions, you don't really have that much word of mouth. But now with GLP-1s, you're getting it. You're really getting it, and you can see like the Reddit for like topics for hers weight loss and him's weight loss. You're really getting a word of mouth with this, and I think it could be the beginning of like word of mouth is seeing as something like, oh, I'm going to have a drink with my friends and I talk about it. But nowadays, I think it can pretty well be like a digital thing. Like you talk about it, even though no one knows you and you're not showing your face and you're just talking about your own experience in social medias or in
I
Reddit,
mean,
something
even
like that.
this, even this podcast is free marketing for the company. It's free brand
Exactly.
awareness.
We never tried HIMS products. I even if I wanted, I can't because I'm from Portugal. But I really think that they care a lot about what the customers think. Because if I'm going for a GLP-1 with HIMS, or if I'm going for a hair loss treatment with HIMS or something related, and the customer experience is terrible and the outcomes are terrible, I will tell everyone. I mean, if someone tells me, oh, I'm going to try HIMS for X or Y or Z, I would right away say, don't do it, please, don't do that. But
Right.
and the I really think the essentially mostly the bears think that HIMS just wants to print money. And I mean, the numbers, if you look at the numbers, you would think that they just want to print money because they are printing money. But I think they do it with caution and really thinking about the customer.
Man, like from a stock perspective, though, it is just every single day, and especially here that in Japan, what I go to bed, the market is just opening, and so when I wake up to do these podcasts, the market has like just closed a couple hours ago, and so every single day this thing is like up 4%, up 2%, up 5%. It's just craziness. I actually named this episode "Will HIMS Break All-Time Highs Before Earnings?" and I put up a poll around that same thing, and so far this poll has, let
Ah,
me
yeah,
just
I
bring
saw it. I didn't
it
vote,
says
to be honest.
160 votes, and the majority of people think that HIMS is going to go past 25.74 before November 4th, um, which is crazy, but it can totally happen. I mean, what, it's like 10% away, 15% away
Yeah,
max.
it's pretty possible. It's like one day for him.
Exactly. So it's just, I don't, it's been an insane stock to hold. I mean, like, I started buying this end of August, beginning of September, and thankfully, I was able to accumulate um, a solid position, at least for me. And I think my cost basis is like low 15s, high 14s. And
That's
so
pretty nice.
it's just it's some pretty crazy returns in the time frame.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but the best thing I did, I think, was buying leaps on it. I bought $30 leaps for super cheap, um, and those are like up a lot.
Yeah, I don't do options or leaps or whatever. Actually, my broker doesn't even allow it. So
You're doing
yeah,
E
but
Trade?
sorry.
You're on E Trade?
No, I'm on trading 212.
Got
It's
it.
like a European,
Yeah.
but I'm considering, not considering. I will do it at some point. Moving to Charles Schwab
Hmm.
because I didn't know, but they have an international account.
Hmm.
If it's, I think more than $25,000, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Someone told me this, and I created an account, and I was like, sounds good, because I mean, I trust trading 212, but first it's kind of a it's as Charles Schwab is publicly traded. I like it. I like to see the balance sheet every quarter and just think, okay, it's fine. And then they in trading 212, even though I am the beneficial owner of the shares I own, they are under custody of trading
Oh,
212.
really?
Yeah. So as
It's
I'm
not-
getting as I'm starting to have higher values in my portfolio, I prefer to switch it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's probably a smart
I'm
move.
considering options because when IMS was at $10 or something like that, I told a friend like buy calls with a $20 strike for later this year. We were probably like in the beginning of 2024,
Hmm.
so those calls would be crazy high now.
A lot. Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
and I did
Um,
with Rocket Lab, but I mean, I didn't buy any because I couldn't, and he made bunch of money, and I was like, ah, fuck.
it's yeah. I mean, interactive brokers is also a good option.
Yeah, I wanted initially interactive brokers,
Mhm,
but first it's really not user friendly,
mhm.
and second, my like trading 212 doesn't allow a portfolio transfer to interactive brokers, and they allow to Charles Schwab. Like I went to the list of, because it's a recent feature, like the transferring the portfolio to a different brokerage, and I was looking at the list of accepted brokerage, and they only accept like Charles Schwab and a few that doesn't they're like are not even available sorry, in Europe. So I had to go for it. Sorry.
So, speaking of Europe, shall we move to our second topic, this UK expansion? Now, this is something that I know zero about. I haven't even read the headline of this news. So you're taking the lead on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to talk about. So essentially uh I was laid down on my bed, and sometimes I use LinkedIn to do some research on the stocks I hold. Like just sometimes it's just out of curiosity to see like
Right.
what they post, like the roles they have opened, and I came across with a new role for head of growth in the UK, and the description of the role was: at HIMS and HERS, we see a significant opportunity for growth in the UK, and we expect 2025 to be a pivotal year for our UK business.
Do you want to throw it up on screen?
Uh, no, not really. I can't do it because I just have one
On screen,
US,
yeah.
USB like entry, so I'm not using my mouse because of the
Yeah.
microphone. I literally left this part on the on the screen to read it on when we talk about it.
So basically, we think that HIMS is going to expand into the UK in 2025. Is that
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I was going to say. First, they had already entered in the UK in 2021,
Mhm.
but it was true through like an acquisition, a very small acquisition of a company called Honest Health, I believe. Yeah, Honest Health, which was just a air loss clinic for men. And but this part of the business is so insignificant that they don't even report it. I mean, they have like a part in the 10K saying, "Oh, our UK business is not really relevant, so we don't even need to report the numbers." So it should be really, really a tiny part of the business. However, in the role description, as I was saying, they said they want like a full time person overseeing multiple product categories, working with all the teams, including product engineering, operations, customer experience, because they want to grow the customer base and revenue in the UK in 2025 specifically. So I assume they'll going after the same model as they have in the US. I would say, and I mean it would probably not probably it will for sure not be as successful as they are like in the US, because I mean one of the big advantages of what IMS offers is the problem that you guys have with the US healthcare system and like the people who don't have insurance and etc etc. But I still believe there is a value proposition to offer, because for instance in my country in Portugal we supposedly have the so-called free socialized healthcare. But I mean, you can ask anyone. It's like terrible. If you need something just to get an appointment, you have to wait weeks or months, or it's really not good. So
yeah,
the value proposition offered by IMS is much more than the thing of the insurance. It's more of like the convenience, the stigma free environment, the 24/7 support, and a lot more like characteristics that stand out. So I think there would be a market for sure there. And I talked with a few friends who are living in the UK, and they said that recently there are dozens of online pharmacies like coming out every day with not with not really with similar products, but with like essentially online pharmacies. IMS is not an online pharmacy, but an online pharmacy can offer some of the products that HIMS offers. But they don't really invest in marketing. They just
right.
like invest in SEO or something like that, like to be in the top of search on Google and like ads, but not really how HIMS does like the heavy marketing and really what I think HIMS could really stand out in the UK if because first they have millions and millions to invest. It's the truth. I mean
So
they're making billions, like not billions, but next year they'll likely make $2 billion in revenue or something. So it's a huge advantage compared to those small online pharmacies. So
slightly different opinion. Can they be? Is the market large enough in Europe and in the UK? Absolutely. Can they be very successful? Absolutely. Do they are they well capitalized to expand there? 1000%. But at the same time, the business is so much in their growth phase in the US that it's so early to diversify their efforts, even their focus to other geographies. When the US starts like flattening out in terms of growth, and when they have released all of these other product lines that they're going to be releasing that also start flattening out, then they can look to re-accelerate that growth through international expansion. But I think that there is a time and a place for it, because if you do it too early, then you're really diverting that, you're splitting that focus between multiple geographies, and it's going to, I don't know, maybe it's going to hurt their growth in the US, or their initiatives that they do in the US, right? Because even if they say, okay, for every 3 US initiatives, we're going to do one initiative in Europe, well, all of a sudden, they could have used that extra effort to fully focus in the US. And so, I think that the market will always be there in Europe. It's not like Europe is going to, stop existing in 5 years or in 10 years. It's still, the need is still going to be there. There's nobody really innovating in Europe. Europe is like strangled by regulation.
Just innovating the plastic bottles.
Yeah, exactly. The plastic bottle caps.
Look,
Yeah, that's innovation. But so my point is like HIMS will have a much smoother time expanding into the US, especially because this is a company that's still growing like 50% year over year, right? Like they're super, super small, man. They're what, 2 million something members. And so the US is like what, 350 million people?
yeah, I see your point.
You know?
I see your point, but in a way, I also think that HIMS is such a capex light model. Like they have such a capex light model that I do think it's not really that big of a risk. And especially if they are hiring someone to like be full time on that, and like so
Right.
they wouldn't really diverse like the people working on the US part of the business would still be there. So because in the role, you can really see that that person will be working like will be the head of growth in the UK literally. And I think one of my followers, when I posted the screenshot of that role, one of my followers said that it was a reposted role that was on like for a long time. So they're probably like waiting for the right person, because I saw that it had like hundreds or like probably hundreds of people like applying, and they probably if they're like reposting it so many times, they're probably not satisfied with anyone and they want someone to be really capable of being in charge of everything. And exactly because of what you said, I really think they don't want to slow down in the US because of the UK, because I mean it wouldn't really make sense. And Andrew already said several times that his goal is to be like in every household in the US and have tens of millions of users in the US. And even though they thought, but that's why I also thought they could announce something soon, because in May of this year, um, Andrew said on X, like when they announced the new COO, Melissa Baird, he said that he wanted HIMS to go international, etc., etc. So I think he was already giving some hints. But
Yeah.
I see your point. I see your point, and I
Well,
wouldn't mind them to stick with the US. But I
yeah, I
also
think that it's just a matter of like if the UK or Europe or Asia or Latin America or wherever fits in with a wider, vision and a wider strategy, then absolutely go for it. What I'm saying is simply that, okay, if all we do is we take the money that we're going to invest in the UK, let's say, you want to buy a facility, you want to hire people, you want to do sales and marketing, you want to do all of these other operational expenses, and then we look at the ROI that it brings, I would imagine, and this is an assumption, but I would imagine that if you put the same exact amount of capital into somewhere else in the US, you would probably get a higher ROI because there's less regulation. The market is more towards consumerism. They're more willing to try new products, so on and so forth. And the space is large enough. And so my point is that if they still, like they've obviously done this math, they're not stupid. But if they still want to expand, regardless of this math, then there's probably something else that fits in with their strategy of why they want to do that, right?
I understand. Yes, I understand your point. But I also think, as I was saying, that as the UK is also an English speaking country, it's kind
Right.
of not that risky because HIMS doesn't even have offices. Like they're a completely remote business. Let's say what the costs they have are the doctors, the customer support, and like then they have a lot of engineers and specialists in compounding rules and all that stuff. But most of the work, if not everything, it's done remotely. So essentially, if as the UK is like an English speaking country as the US, I think it wouldn't bring that many costs, at least in an initial stage. And in the initial stage, they could right away see if it was like worth it to like invest more in the country or not.
Yeah.
So that's why what I mean. Because if they go there and they just see it's not really good enough, they could like just step down without like spending that much money. And also,
Yeah,
if they
because
entered the UK, sorry, in 2021 with that acquisition, they could be like planting the seed, and maybe
Mhm.
for during these years they studied the market and tried to see if it was really worth it or not. That's why I believe they might have been like studying it for a long time before doing this. Because I mean, I never heard about that acquisition like after that. Maybe they just
it's
like planted the
it,
seed, as I was saying, as some companies usually do. But yeah, I see your point, and I
like
probably
it's
it would be better to just go for the US. But they also want more brand awareness, so that's also might come into play. I don't know.
it's totally possible, man. Like they could. I think that the market, like they're a publicly traded company, right? And the market is pretty unforgiving when it comes to like if I'm going to expand into the UK and then and not allocate more resources there and just sort of like let it be stagnant, or if I'm going to withdraw, even like the market is going to kill them from a market cap perspective. So why? Because shareholders want the highest ROI for
Hmm.
their money, right? The business to make the best possible decisions on the board. And so it won't inspire confidence if this is not the right move, which is why it needs to be a well thought out move. But anyways, we'll I think what you're saying makes sense. Like it doesn't really cost them too much to set up like a satellite office and just start off and then just gauge engagement. They would just need to make sure that they can communicate it in that way
Yeah,
so that the
manage
market
expectations. Yeah.
exactly right, because the moment that they say, hey, we're expanding to UK, the market is going to give them a premium and the stock is going to jump 20% or whatever. um, and so there's certain expectations that are going to be baked into that. People are going to say, okay, what's the population of the UK, what can they capture, what does that mean for revenue, and all of those are assumption, right? So
Mm.
that's all I'm saying. um, Go ahead.
No, I mean you're totally right. I understand. But one thing that HIMS has always been like crazy good at is at managing expectations.
Yeah.
So I believe Andrew has everything like well prepared, but it's like your point is totally fair, and I really understand it. But I mean, we gotta wait for it to be honest. I
Which
really do.
brings us to earnings, because they're going to report in a couple weeks, and we're going to get to hear, management, talking about initiatives and maybe new product launches. And next week we are going to do our earnings predictions episode. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's going to be a fun one. Um,
I'd love like some analysts to ask it, like ask Andrew about this, but last earnings call,
the
like
UK.
yeah, about the UK, because I mean it's important. I mean it's very important, but every question in the last earnings call was about GLP-1s. Literally
Well,
every
that's
question.
analysts for you, man. That's analysts across the board. Like if there is something like future related, um, it's guaranteed that an analyst will completely miss it entirely.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
I understand the importance of GLP-1s, but I mean if you just had like 5 or 6 analysts asking about GLP-1s and you're just going to ask like a question not that different from what he already said or something like that.
yeah,
I mean, come on, just show some work, ask about the core business. ask about something else. Just show that you do your homework. It's
Yeah.
really I know how analysts work and I understand all that, but it's really annoying. I really
Yeah, I
don't.
mean, a lot of them don't do their homework, right? Because you have three stocks that you're covering, they have 30. Um,
Yeah, I
so,
understand. I understand. But I mean, I've had like to do equity research reports on like other companies and publicly traded Portuguese companies, and I even had like as it was like an earnings call, but just for like a couple of students from my masters when I was taking my masters. And I mean, even we were like doing better questions than all the questions in the earnings call, even like for that specific company in Portugal, because then we have like analysts in Portugal. We don't have like good companies in the stock market. Our stock market is really terrible.
mhm.
But like we have analysts from Germany, from Spain, from like around Europe, essentially asking questions. And I mean, they're just like the ones in the US. It's really like this industry is. That's why I'm trying to do my own thing, because I mean, I was invited by some big four to work there and other investment banking, like when I finished my masters. But I'm really trying to do my own thing, because I most of the methods, and I mean, it's good to have a working experience, and that's why I've had like a small one, let's say. But I'm really not a fan of their methods and like the way they work and the goals and the commissions like minded thing. And I mean, yeah, this was just like me saying random stuff, but I'm really glad we have some people like us on X and like the community, that even the people that are not really good communicators or like friendly or whatever, but they do the homework. I mean,
Yeah.
I really like to
Well,
have that people to like this to talk about.
yeah, I like it, especially, with small cap uh, companies, because I feel like there's more retail coverage on those stocks specifically. Like if I go to, talk about Apple, for example, I'm sure I'll find content creators that talk about Apple, but they talk about it from many different perspectives and as one of many different stocks that they talk about. But if you go for like HIMS, for example, there's content creators on X that all they do is talk about HIMS. HIMS is the number one thing that every single one of their posts is about. And so that level, I think, of dedication and depth of research is amazing to find on X. And I think it's more prevalent in small cap companies because, a lot of their people put all their eggs in that one basket and then watch it very closely. Um, we are almost at 1 hour. Do we want to cover the CMO news very quickly and then leave it there?
I mean, yeah, we can.
Let's do it.
There's really not that much to talk, to be honest. Let me just open here. So yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday. HIMS announced Dr. Jessica Shepard. It's Shepard, right? I think I'm spelling
Yeah,
it
sure.
correctly. As the new chief medical officer of Earth. So they didn't say this, but I assume the Dr. Carol, I think it's Carol, which was the chief officer of everything. I assume he will like be on just the HIMS side and uh, Dr. Shepard on hers.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, first she's. I mean, I didn't know her before. Obviously, I'm not saying I knew her. Sorry, but from what I understood, she has a very extensive knowledge in a lot of things related with woman wellness and all that. But what I found really interesting is that she's a menopause expert, and so like if we just put all the pieces together, like this coupled with the acquisition of the 503B compounding pharmacy, which allows HIMS to go after sterile medications, and menopause treatments are like is a sterile treatment. I believe HIMS will enter in menopause treatments very soon. And they already said they want to go. So it's not really a question of will they enter in menopause treatments, is more like a when will they enter in menopause treatments. And
Right.
here, in a way, like I think they might announce it in the next earnings call, like next week or in a couple of weeks. But I also believe they might hold on a bit more because of the uncertainty regarding GLP-1s. Because
Mm.
imagine, as I think I we talked about this in the last episode, but like if they completely stop selling GLP-1s, if they can't do what they said and they just stop selling GLP-1s,
Right.
inevitably the growth will slow down. And
Right.
if for example they manage to sell GLP-1s, for instance, during 2025, like the entire year of 2025, the percentage of revenue coming from GLP-1s will likely be like considerable. So if they lose everything in 2026, they might even like have like a flat growth or something like that, which for
Yeah.
HIMS is like really not usual.
Yeah.
So
Back to $5.
yeah, I mean, not back to $5, but it would be really dramatic. So I think they might be like saving a few growth levers to
Hmm.
like compensate for this, for this possibility. Because even though they think they can do it, I think they have like in mind that they really need to understand the dynamics of the situation before. And
Yeah.
so that's what I was saying. Like HIMS, before like launching a new category, they work on it for a long time. So they're probably working on menopause treatments and hormonal therapy and a lot of new categories during like for a long time. But I'm really not sure if they will like. In a way, it would be very nice to announce right now in the next earnings call, but I'm really not sure if that's the move they want to do it. And the same with the UK. That's why I was saying that they might like be saving a few growth levers to like
Hmm.
they said 2025 will be a pivotal year for the UK. But I mean, it can be like in the second half of 2025 or in the last quarter of 2025. You see, like they can. I'm really not sure what to think right now. We have to wait. But it's a good treatment to have, like a good category. It will bring more people, more brand awareness, and it makes all the sense with the acquisition they made. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, for me, the first thought that I had was, okay, great that we're getting new products for hers because it feels as though the HIMS side of the business has more. I don't know if this is uh, the case. We'd have to look, product line by product line and the revenue that each product line brings. But just the perception is that the HIM side of the business has more products, more revenue, more focus from the business, and the hers side. And even if you look at like the App Store rankings, right, like they're both in the top 10 now. Um, and so my first thought was, oh, that's great because now the hers product will have like flagship, product
Mhm.
offerings that both of the sides of the business can rise. Um, so it's a great addition. I do think that they'll probably announce something at earnings or around that same week, around because I frankly think that they will be able to get around the GLP-1 um, the GLP-1 problem after the shortage ends. Like they have enough levers to pull there, and they're going to be probably separate sides of like separate teams that are working on both of these things, right? So they're working on multiple problems at the same time. We'll see. I mean, I do think that they're going to drop at least something on earnings, just given their recent trend of like every quarter releasing new products.
Mhm.
Um, I think menopause could be it. I've seen as well, like testosterone is another possibility that they're, um, looking into.
Yeah,
There's a
those are
lot of
the two categories to be launched next. Like most
exactly.
certainly, most certainly.
So, one or the other, I think before the end of the year, we're definitely going to get a new product from the company, at least an announcement of a new product. And that's a really interesting thing, man. Like, we have a possibility here where, like, I know I said jokingly, like, yeah, before earnings, this thing's going to break into new highs. But with
But
so many
it's
irons
very
that they have in the
possible. I
fire,
mean,
yeah, like who knows what this thing could be at the end of the year or beginning of 2025, because if they have so many initiatives on the go, GLP-1s and all of these new product offerings and international expansion, and there's a lot to love here. And so I think that the earnings is going to be good. I was also seeing your posts about, like, analysts upgrading the stock consistently and immediately
like
before
2 weeks
earnings.
after after Bank of America raised the price target, the
Yeah,
stock's price went up, and then 2 weeks later they raised the price target again. It's crazy.
it's silly is what it
But
is.
just
But
about what you were saying, like regarding HIMS being a larger part than hers.
mm,
In the, I think it was the last interview that Andrew had, or maybe, but it's not relevant. Like recently, Andrew said that he really believes that hers will be the larger part of the business, even though
interesting.
him started for man, like with the boner pills and all that. He like for a long time that the hers side of the business is growing at like triple digits.
Mm,
Last year I remember, because they don't report it separately, but I remember last year, or maybe in the beginning of the year, maybe in one of the earnings calls, one of the analysts asked about it, like how is hers performing against IMS, and he said hers is growing at like triple digits. It's like the number one driver of our recent growth. So I really believe, and this was what Andrew said, I really believe that hers will be um, the larger part of the business in the long term. He even joked about changing the ticker from hims to hers. Like it was like my wife is always telling me about it. So yeah, I mean, hims is
wow.
now the larger part of revenues, but it as each quarter it becomes like it's really becoming even.
I really wish they would report everything on a, segment by
Yeah,
segment.
category by
Yeah.
category. I mean, that's I understand why they don't, because probably they have like bad fluctuations in some categories that they don't want us to know about.
Yeah, but eventually they're going to stabilize, right? As we get larger numbers, it's going to be like, you can't have hers growing at 300% every year. They're going to do it for
Yeah,
the first couple of
more
years.
like
And
of categories based, for instance, air loss or mental health or something like that. I guess in some quarters they might have like a small decrease or even a huge decrease that then it's compensated by the other one. I think it really depends on the marketing and where they're trying like the marketing spend, because as they have so much churn, like in the industry overall there's so much churn that I think they're trying to like save themselves from public awareness about these things. But yeah, I would love to see it as well, like even not only IMS versus hers, but also like sexual health, dermatology, weight loss.
yeah, yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, let's wrap there. Um, Overall, great episode. I think everybody, thank you for being here and watching. Next week we are going to do earnings predictions for HIMS, and then in 2 weeks, we're going to be covering the earnings live on this channel. And I think it's going to be an early wake up for me, but
You
that's okay.
you'll be there yet still in Japan?
Yeah, I'll be here for like the next 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Oh,
Which I'm not complaining about
living
it.
the best life, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So stay tuned. I'll let Manuel answer this. Next week, also Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yes, I think so, yeah. At least for now, I have nothing, no constraints. So
Perfect. Next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, HIMS earnings predictions. Make sure that you tune in for that. And then the following week, I believe, is the actual earnings call where we're going to be covering it live. Thanks, everybody, for being here. See you in the next one.